Well, welcome back to Speaking Queerly. My name is Mallory. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Civic Engagement and Advocacy Manager at Kaleidoscope Youth Center. And today I am so excited to introduce you all to our guest, Rachel Maletz. I'll let her introduce herself a little bit more, but I had the pleasure of getting introduced to her earlier this summer when she connected with KYC wanting to talk a little bit more about a project she's working on. And I just think it is such an empowering, impactful initiative that she's taking. So I wanted to spread the word a little bit and give her a chance to share a little bit more of what she's working on. So, Rachel, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be on a podcast for my first time ever, but I'm a rising senior. Well, now I'm a senior at New Albany High School, and all of the seniors at my school are given an opportunity to do a senior seminar project, which is research on anything you want to do. So back in April, I met with Morgan Harper at Columbus Stand Up, and we talked about just spitting off ideas about what we could do with voter registration, which is something I'm very passionate about. And we decided on organizing a youth candidate forum as well as a voter registration initiative. And the biggest part why this is so important to me is because I just turned 17, so I'm not old enough to vote yet. But since we have so many young people able to participate in this election, I wanted to give other people my age the opportunity to know who they're voting for and how to get involved and give them the opportunity to vote in the first place. So,
That is incredible. I have so many questions. I guess I first want to start off by unpacking a little bit more about this senior seminar. This is like, we had had a conversation a little bit ago about this, but something that really struck me is when you were talking about this initially, you were kind of giving examples of what some of your peers were doing for their projects. Just because, I mean, I hear you talk about this initiative and it is so vast, and you started it back in April, long before you were even starting your senior year, right? Is that typical for people to start it that early? And maybe what are some other projects that your peers are working on?
so they introduced the project just as an idea in around February, March, I think, and they basically just lay out how to go about it and what types you can do. So the options, if I remember all of them, there's like self-improvement, job shadowing. There's one about civic duty, I think, which is what mine falls under. And there's a lot of different, you can really do anything you want with this project. A lot of people I know are doing internships or like learning a new instrument or building something or just training for a marathon. Like it's so vast. You can really just do whatever you want with it. But that's what most of them are, like job shadowing or self-improvement. So,
Very cool. That's awesome. I really was like intrigued by this because this seems like the type of project that maybe like a college student would have to do or whatever, but I think it's really awesome that you're given the opportunity to explore something that is like of interest to you. Because I think when I think back to my senior year, which not even gonna lie, I had this epiphany a couple days ago that the start of my senior year was 10 years ago this week, which gave me a little bit of like a midlife crisis, right? But I'm thinking about where I was 10 years ago. And I honestly, I like to think that I was involved in my community, and to some extent I was, but I think the scope of that community only was inside the realm of my high school community. You know what I mean? So like student council, things like that. And not to denounce the importance of those organizations, but I think when I was your age, I would not have thought as broadly as like, let's register 1,000 young people to vote, right? I think if I was taking on this project 10 years ago, I would have been like, let's get more school spirit. Can we get more green and gold in our school? You know what I mean? And here you are like trying to make a huge difference, not only in your immediate community, but the entire state of Ohio and beyond. So can you talk to me a little bit more about like what inspired you to take on this particular topic? Because, you say that this is an issue that's of interest and something you're passionate about, but why?
so my just keeping it to my actual school, my favorite class I've ever taken was AP US History. And in the order that we go in at my school, you would take AP Government after that. So those have definitely been my favorite classes so far. Ever since middle school, I've really just been interested in politics. And when I was in eighth grade, it was the 2020 election. So I've just been following that obviously throughout the last 4 years, but it's always been interesting to me. And my AP government teacher is the one who put me in contact with Morgan because he knows her on a level, and I was just interested in doing something with government and politics, especially in college. I hope to major in political science. So he put me in contact with her after talking to my other teacher, who is now my senior seminar class advisor, and they just thought it would be a good idea to put me in contact with her because of everything she does. And it was always something of interest to me. So I wanted to show that through this project.
Awesome. That is really incredible. Can you talk me a little bit more through like what your work on this project has entailed during the summer? So I know you've been having some like organizing meetings and things like that, but who are some of the folks you've been connecting to? What are some of the steps you've been taking in order to bring this into reality?
So at the start of the summer, we started with meetings twice a week, just with our immediate team to kind of make a base for what we're going to do for the week and what the plan is for the weekend. So every weekend, I would go out and do voter registration, which was so much harder than I thought it would be, especially the concept of going up to strangers and just talking to them, which is not something I'm extremely good at, but it's definitely gone easier. And I think that was probably the hardest part about doing. Like, I was stuck all week. Don't say stuck, but I was sending a lot of emails and doing meetings all week. And like the hardest part for me was going out and just talking to strangers, trying to get them registered. But um at the beginning of summer, we tried to get into contact with as many people as possible to show up to the forum itself. So the first people were our prosecutor candidates, and just the like process of learning how to send professional emails, because to that point in my life, I've only ever emailed teachers, and that's just like to come in and make up a test. So I've never communicated with so many like adults in a professional setting before. So I definitely had some trial and error going into that. But the prosecutors were the first people we reached out to, Shayla Faber and John Rutan, and they were both very excited about coming and doing this. So it was just a relief knowing that they were on board at first so that we would even be able to pull this off in the first place. And then reaching out to the senator candidates as well as the Supreme Court candidates, which was definitely more of a waiting game for sure. But we have confirmed two of the Democratic judicial candidates, Justice Seward and Judge Forbes. And that was also just like, it was such a good feeling every single time somebody like agreed to show up and showed excitement in doing this, as well as reaching out to who is going to be moderating this. So from NBC4, we have Natalie Fahmy and Carrie Charles, who are going to be moderating. And that was really exciting too, just reaching out to all of these people to even get the forum to be what it is now. And now that we're less than a month away, it's definitely getting more real. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I totally feel you on the professional email thing because that's something that like, you email your uncle or something like that. It's like, hey, uncle, whatever, you know what I mean? You've got that informal language and then realizing, oh, I'm emailing like a professional, right?
yes.
Could you talk a little bit more? And we'll get into more of the specifics of the event too, but I'm just curious what are some of the skills that you feel like you've taken away from this experience so far? Things like professional email writing, or like what are some things that have surprised you that you've learned?
Definitely becoming more outgoing. And that's definitely just been like practice, like going out and talking to people who I've never met before, because I'm definitely more of an introvert. So it was definitely a big hurdle to get over. But I even started taking some of my friends with me to go and register people, and it was just like interesting because they would be able to just go and like grab people out of nowhere and talk to them, and it was always just like really nerve-wracking. But I've definitely gotten better from that, which makes the whole voter registration go so much easier. And the emails was definitely a learning process because I would draft up things to send out to all of our collaborators and everything, and I would send them over to Morgan, and they would just come back with so many edits, which is, I'm so glad that she was able to help me on this because I would not be able to even do anything without her help. But it's definitely been a big learning opportunity just doing everything. And even going from just sitting on meetings to being able to lead them is something that's been really exciting. And it helps obviously with going to college and like learning just these basic skills. So
100%. Yeah, because I mean, if there's any opportunity for you to do any sort of interview before going like if you're applying for different programs that require you to have an interview or even just your application process.
mhm.
I can think of so many faux pas when I was like just starting my freshman year or just getting, into things in college where, I had a professor one time call me out in class because I started all of my emails to her with hey. And I was like, I don't know. I thought this was casual, right? Like,
Yeah.
we have this report. And she was like, no, you never address a professor with hey. And I was like, heard. And every time I address an email now to anyone, I think of that interaction, right? So
Mhm.
the fact that you're learning these things now and you have someone who's able to coach you through that, I think that's, I mean, just tremendous for
Yes.
your life moving forward. So very cool.
Yes.
Um, Tell me a little bit more about the candidate forum itself. Like, when is it? What can people expect? Who are you hoping will show up to this?
So the forum will be September 15th from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. at East High School. And we are inviting all high schoolers from Central Ohio, specifically Franklin County, to come. And this is really just for them to learn about the local elections that are affecting them directly because everybody already knows about the presidential race. Everyone's following it. We all know the general idea. But even I was not aware of who was running for all of these local races and everything. And those are the people that are affecting us directly, whether it be in Ohio or when they're in Washington, and all of the legislature that they're a part of is affecting us here. So I just wanted to show everybody all of their options. It is a nonpartisan event. So we're hoping to hear from the audience themselves and being able to ask questions because it will not be a debate between the candidates. It'll just be a conversation for them to talk about what they care about, what they're planning to do, and how they're going to essentially help the young people of Columbus. It is directed towards people ages 18 to 25, but we welcome everybody who wants to attend. We're hoping to fill the room. So just trying to get the word out to everybody.
Yeah, that's so real. And I think it's really important, as you said, that you're focusing on local candidates. Because yeah, absolutely. Everybody who has opened up social media or the TV or anything at this point is well aware that there is an important presidential race taking place this year. But I think, it can be easy to feel helpless at times when you're thinking about national politics because it's like, I mean, I've heard a lot of discourse about people saying like, oh, well, I'm not a huge fan of either candidate or, whatever, or I'm not a fan of either political party or, wherever people stand on any issue, right? And something when I hear those comments, I like to direct people towards is like, okay, but you're not just voting for president, you're voting down the ballot. And all of these people in your local communities are the ones making decisions that affect your day-to-day life more so than maybe what's happening in the Oval Office. And so while it is very important, of course, to vote for the President of the United States, it's also important to consider your US Senator, and it's important to consider your statewide official or your state representatives, things like that, and down to county prosecutors, everything like that. And so, not even just being aware that these candidates exist, but what do their offices do? What will they be doing in this capacity, right? I think, I know for me, when I am preparing to vote, I do a little bit of research on like the judicial candidates. So I'm not caught off guard by those things. But I think that a lot of folks probably just go in and it's like, the name Sally sounds good to me. I'll go with that, right? So I think what you're doing to not only educate about the candidates, but give an opportunity for conversation is really important too for just general understanding of what these offices are.
Yes, definitely. Because especially for people, I can't speak for 25-year-olds, but I know that people my age, including myself, everybody's influenced by your parents and who your family, like your family values. So it is perfectly fine to stay aligned with that. But if you feel differently, then I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to just see what the options are. And who knows, you might find yourself having a different opinion as well as just voting in the first place. Because, like you said, I know a lot of people have been talking about, especially the presidential race, they don't want to vote for anybody. They don't like either candidates. But something I saw that has definitely stuck in my mind is that if you don't vote at all, it's basically just a vote for your least favorite candidate. So I just think it's really important to get out there and vote regardless. And that's what I want to, that was more behind the voter registration initiative is just getting as many young people registered in the first place so that if they do decide to vote, I've had a lot of people tell me that they don't even want to vote in this election. I'm like, well, just in case, like fill out the form, you never know. In 3 months, you might change your mind. So,
That's so real because with voter registration deadlines, I know the deadline to register to vote in Ohio is October 7th. And
yes.
if you don't register by that day, like you're kind of out of luck. I mean, there's opportunities for provisional ballots and things like that, depending on your situation, but it's always better to be prepared and to register. And then if you don't use that, well, okay, that's on you. But if you do choose to use it, you want to have that option, right? And I also want to plug the necessity of checking your voter registration, right? Because there's a lot of folks who unfortunately over the summer were purged from Ohio's voter registration database. And if you go online to your local Board of Elections website or voteohio.gov, you can check your registration and make sure that you're registered to vote. Even if you just voted in March, even if you just voted in the election last November, check your registration because who knows? I mean, you would hate to go to the polls in November and find that your registration had been unintentionally or unbeknownst to you removed from the registration. So I want to plug that as well for people of all
Yes.
ages. That is especially important. But I really like that point that you bring up of like you might change your mind.
And you don't have to go all the way to your Board of Elections to register, just for everybody to know that you can register online. So it'll take like 5 or 10 minutes to check registration and then just register yourself online. It's a very short form to fill out. So that's just another point.
Yeah, absolutely. How has so I'm sure you've talked to like friends and classmates, family members, things like that. How has the response been to folks who are hearing about your project and learning more about what you're doing?
Well, I'm sure if any of my coworkers are listening to this right now, it's pretty much all I talk about at work because whenever I have a break, I'm sitting and answering emails and doing all this stuff. But it's definitely been a little bit of people are a little shocked to hear about it whenever I bring it up because when I explain the whole thing, it sounds overwhelming to me, and I'm sure it sounds overwhelming to other people. So it's always nice when people are like excited about it too, because it's not everyone cares about politics, not to be like a put down on anybody else. Like it's not everyone's thing. Even if you vote, like it's just not for everybody, but it's just been something I'm interested in and it's exciting when other people are too. So it's definitely been a lot of positive responses. And I've had people just say that I'm doing too much work for this project, which I am also agree with because it is a lot of work, but it'll help me in the end. So,
Yeah, I mean, it'll help you in the sense that like when it comes time to apply for colleges, you have your application essay ready to go, right? You know, you have all these things you can talk about, and that's obviously like self-beneficial, but when it comes time to the election, when the election results are rolling out, when the impact of the election is hitting the news cycle for the next 4 years, right? You can look back and kind of be like, oh, I played a role in that, either for a positive reason or maybe if the outcome isn't um all that great one way or another, right? You can say like, okay, well, I did what I could. Because I think, using the 2016 election as an example, there were a lot of folks who had a wake-up call, whether they were eighth graders like yourself or, full-on adults of any age. I think there was a general wake-up call of like, oh, should I have done more? Should I have actually voted? Should I have been knocking doors? And I think you'll be able to kick back and be like, I literally did the most that I could to impact literally the future of your country. So I think that's pretty remarkable. So
Thank you.
um where do you work, if you don't
I'm
mind me asking?
I'm a lifeguard at my local pool. So we
Yeah, okay.
like
I think I remember
yeah,
you saying that, but when you were saying you were on break, I just had this vision of you being like in a guard room doing this. I also worked as a lifeguard for many years, so
yes. Because we always
that's
have,
awesome.
the 10-minute break at the end of the hour. So my laptop
Hmm.
came in. A lot of the people I registered to vote were my coworkers. I would like bring the forms into work
Nice.
every day and just be like, they all know about this project. They hear me talk about it all the time. So it's almost a running joke whenever I come in now if I'm going to be registering anybody, but it's definitely it's fun. So
That's very cool. Have you been able to register like patrons as they come into the pool,
I
or have you tried to
haven't
keep a
well,
boundary?
I have not done patrons only because I don't know if I'm like because technically it is kind of like political, so I don't know if I'm allowed to just go up to them in my lifeguard uniform and ask them to register to vote. Is it's also a lot of older people with really little kids. So my key demographic isn't really there, but a good amount of people I've worked with, I definitely have. So
That's fantastic. That's great. So you work as a lifeguard, you're registering all these people to vote, you are planning a candidate forum. If you have any spare time whatsoever, oh, and you're a student too, right? And your classes just started for the new school year, so not to undermine that. But when you have free time, when you are focusing on just you, Rachel, what are some things that you like to do to kind of unwind, or what are some ways that you've been, taking time for yourself amidst all this chaos?
well, I play lacrosse, and that's a spring sport, but we do start preseason in like September. So throughout the fall, that's just a couple times a week. I have practice or lifting, which I really enjoy because all my friends play. So that's definitely a fun part of the year. And then when it comes to just, I haven't even thought about like my actual hobbies because it's especially with school starting, it's a lot of just like homework and finishing the SAT, which I'm taking on Saturday. And then
Oh my
it's
gosh.
just a lot. But my sister and I, honest, like the only thing coming to mind is my sister and I go to Trader Joe's all the time and buy just like all the new snacks they come out with. So that's probably one of my favorite things to do, but it's definitely kind of a costly hobby. But
But you also have to refuel yourself to keep up with all the things that you're
exactly.
doing. So I think it's important that you're taking time to eat as well. I know that that's usually one of the first things to go when my life gets busy. It'll get to be 3 o'clock and I'm like, oh crap, I haven't eaten anything today. So that's great. So when you are, you're thinking about your senior year, obviously you're going to have this project out of the way probably sooner than most of your classmates, just because of the timing of the election and things like that. Um, when you think about senior year, there's a lot of nostalgia associated with it, but also a lot of hope for the future. So where are you falling on that spectrum of things? Are you kind of like sad to say goodbye to high school, or are you looking forward to what's yet to come?
I am not very sad to say goodbye to high school. I'm definitely more excited to move on to college. The only thing I think about missing high school is missing my friends and missing my sister and my two cats and my parents. But I'm in the college application process right now, and I'm it's a rough and very strenuous process, but I'm excited doing it because I'm very excited to move on to college next year and pursue that. So I'm excited for all of the lasts of senior year and graduation and everything, but I'm definitely ready to move on. So,
Yeah, that absolutely tracks. That makes sense. The lasts are such a big thing. I used to joke, and part of it was joking, part of it was 100% serious, that I was so nostalgic at the end of my senior year that you could say, "Oh, this is the last time you're going to wash your hands in this sink," or "the last time you're going to step on this tile in the hallway." And I'd start crying because I was like, "You're so right. I've always loved that tile, you know?" So I think it is a really great attitude that you have of like, yeah, you're sad to leave these things behind, but there's so much to look forward to as well. And I
yeah.
know that with the ambition that you've shown so far and just all the different things that you're involved in, I only know that that is going to continue to flourish when you make it to college as well.
Yes, I'm very excited to get into a I'm at a somewhat big high school, not crazy big, but I definitely want to go to a very big college. So obviously, I'm not a huge football fan, but I love the Big Ten. So I'm looking to stay in the region and still do all the fun things I grew up doing. But I'm just to be in a bigger environment with more opportunities and clubs to join and all that kind of stuff. So
That's awesome. Well, I know I can speak for myself, and I'm sure everybody else you've been interacting with that we cannot wait to see where your journey is going to take you, and we can't wait to see, of course, what's going to come of this project, but all that is going to continue to come in your senior year and beyond. So I'm just so grateful to have met you through this process that you're going through. But I can't wait to see how this candidate form turns out. So it's September 15th.
yes.
If you want to give any final reminders about that for folks listening, any last minute updates.
Yes, September 15th, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. If there's any students listening and your school does volunteer hours, if you want to come and help set up a table or hand out flyers or anything, just I can give my email or something, but you can get service hours for coming. Just any way you want to get involved. It'll be at East High School. And I think that's all I have to say. But
Awesome. We'll include all of that information. And if you want, we can include your email address in the episode notes so people can check that out. And we'll certainly be sharing the graphic on social media to help promote that as well. So I just think it is a tremendous undertaking that you're doing, but one that's going to have just an absolutely profound impact on the community. And I'm really excited to see it come to fruition.
thank you so much.
Rachel, it was so great to have you on this episode of Speaking Queerly, and I just wish you the best of luck with this and beyond.
Thank you so much for having me.